Hello, this is Mark from I Am Organic Gardening, and welcome to my back to Eden garden in the middle of winter. So what's growing or living in the soil in the middle of winter? And I was very lucky. I ordered up some more peach trees because they were still a good price and had them shipped here. And I was going to heel them in, which means if you can't plant them directly in the ground, you can plant them in like leaf mold as long as you keep those roots covered and also moist through the rest of the winter. Then you can replant them in the springtime in the proper spot. So you can see that I added 4 more peach trees inside my original back to Eden garden that I use between that and the fall leaves comparison. And here's my other back to Eden garden. What's in front of us right now is leaves about, say, a foot thick, but behind that is the back to Eden garden with all the peach trees planted in it, and they're doing very nicely. We're going to be trimming them up shortly to remove any kind of dead stems that were hurt during shipping. And I have my neighbor out here this morning, my curious fox that always keeps the mice down low on the farm. We had a total of 7 inches of snow so far, but our weather has changed to the 60-degree weather about 3 or 4 days ago. It all melted. Now it's currently 20 degrees, so let's look at our soil temperature now. So I have a thermometer placed in the soil, and it goes down about 5 inches, and we're going to find out the current temperature in the soil. Now, it hasn't been above freezing for the last maybe 2 days, but you can see the soil temperature right there is about 36, 37 degrees. That's because all those living microorganisms are moving around, eating and giving off carbon dioxide and making their own heat in the soil too, which is amazing. But we're going to find out which ones are doing it more than the other ones, and what is some of the other part of the soil food web also doing too. And the way to find that out is through a microscope that I have, and I will show you what I can find living in the soil right now. So what I'm going to do next is take a soil sample around the base of the thermometer and bring it inside, and we're going to look underneath the microscope to see what's exactly living in the soil right now. You can see here I took a flat-edge shovel and went around the whole outside perimeter to make pretty much a square box. So I have this cube that's in the ground right now. I think I got down around anywhere from, let's say, 8 to 12 inches. I'm going to try to pull it out by hand on the top here, and hopefully it will come out in all one piece. And then we're going to see how the roots did from the time I planted these seeds a couple months ago, and what's growing in there, and let's see what else we can find. And then I'll take some of that soil sample and do a test underneath the microscope. Now here's a very good example of what I've been trying to say over the last couple months. When you don't have a living root in the ground, you're not going to grow soil because all these roots are aerating it. They're not letting it become compact again. It's spreading it open, and it's going to keep it open because the mycorrhizal fungi in here on the roots is going to come off and make a glue called glomalin and keep those pores open. So water can go down and air can come back up. Now, I know I've mentioned this before, but it's very important because a lot of people still think if you just put wood chips on top of the soil here, that somehow this is going to go down and change the soil. It's not. Unless you possibly might have, and a lot of people do in some areas, they might have a living root from a tree, like so here, and that will form out mycorrhizal in the wood chip area. But if you don't have a living root in the ground, it's not going to do anything. Just putting wood chips on top of your soil here, there's nothing living up here except a couple decomposing microorganisms that will break this apart. But how can it reach down the soil? It has no working force. There's no animals or microbiology that's going to pull it down as more important than the roots. The roots are the key. The roots will feed the soil sugar and carbohydrates, feed that soil, and also now taking sunlight from here and pushing it down into the ground with some liquid carbon to also feed that soil. So I'm inside now, and I have my soil sample, And then I took about 1 milliliter of that and added 4 milliliters of water. And then I just rotated it back and forth for a little bit and then mixed it all up. And then I was just going to grab 1 drop and we're going to see what's living inside that water now. So now we place our slide underneath the microscope and we have our camera hooked up. Now we have to just turn the light on and we can see underneath the microscope, and I can show you exactly what's going on. So I have my slide in the microscope, and now I'm going to hook up the camera. We're going to slide that in. And what you're seeing now, this is at 100 magnification. And let's see if we can enlarge this here. Go the other way. These here, the clear particles, those are sand particles. Let's reduce this down a little bit. These are sand particles, and you don't see much of the life right now because you have to go to a higher magnification. So I'm going to go to 1,000 and let it readjust. Now you can see movement around. Again, these are still our sand particles. Those are the largest particles in our soil. Now let me focus. It's going to take a little bit of time to do here. But you can see all the bacteria and the soil life alive and moving there in between those sand particles. And also down here in the corner, this is organic matter. This is like leaf mold. But the main thing I want to point out, and you really have to look, and I'm sorry about the camera quality here, is I want you to see how much is moving around. Probably 90% of that is bacteria, which is a good thing, because what that is, they're eating all the organic matter all around here, and they're dying and eating it again and dying and eating again, and they're multiplying, they're growing. And that's the purpose of what's growing in the wintertime in our garden. All that bacteria is going to be food for the rest of the soil food web. In the springtime, they're going to eat all that bacteria, releasing all those nutrients to the plants. So when you have a high population of bacteria, plus you have the rest of the soil food web in there ready to eat them and go after them, they're going to release those nutrients that they've been eating, that organic matter, and also working on the sand. You know, they're going to become part of the whole soil food web and just flourish in the springtime and give your plants all the nutrients that it needs. Now here's a perfect example when I'm trying to show you what grows in wintertime and what's important. You can see all the movement, and that's bacteria. Now you won't see mycorrhizal fungi in here because I don't have a root in here, but let's say this pipette or this plastic tube here is mycorrhizal fungi. That goes in the soil and separates it from our sand particles and our organic matter up here. Now, the reason why it's so important for it to separate and stay open, because the mycorrhiza will stay there and form a glue. Everything right now is suspended in water, so you can see things. But once you take the water away, all these particles will become close together. So now if you have the mycorrhizal in the ground, say there's bacteria down here, this cilia, which eats the bacteria, can move through the soil and the gaps. If the gaps are closed, only bacteria is going to be growing in your soil. And that's where you get a lot of weeds and you don't have this whole soil food web working. So that living root is so important to open up that soil, to exude glumalin, to separate that and hold it open so the larger predators can move around in the soil to eat the bacteria. And then it keeps growing downwards and downwards in your soil, opening it up and also letting air back in. So it's so important to have a living root in the ground, not just organic matter, to keep that soil open. So here's a picture diagram of the soil food web, and I want to show you a little bit more detail what I was just talking about. Now, I showed you all that living bacteria, and the fungus or the fungi in here is only from the living root of a plant, so you can't see that, and it's very small and tiny. But what I'm trying to say here, and you can see the word, I call it cilia, but it's ciliates and that's a protozoa. That will eat the bacteria and then release its nutrients into the plant. Now, when that is going around eating the bacteria, which is multiplying so much now because these are dormant, the fungi and the bacteria are the ones that are growing right now and multiplying so much and growing soil for us. So we need it to open all that soil up, because you can see how the protozoa or the ciliates, all these other microbiology is larger. So that's why you need those gaps in the soil so they can go down and feed off the bacteria and the fungi. I want to thank you very much for watching this video today and taking the time out to do so. If you have any questions at all, leave them in the comments below and I'll get right back to you. And if you haven't done so, please subscribe and give me a thumbs up. Thanks.